I call Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. As has been said many times, of course, in the course of this debate, this was our chance to get things right when it comes to workplace health and safety. And we're not talking about our chance, not Labor's chance, not New Zealand First or Greens' chance. It was the chance for this Parliament, every member in this Parliament, to get things right in the face of one of the worst health and safety records that any OECD country has. In the aftermath of some of the worst tragedies we've had in workplaces in New Zealand. It started, in most people's living memory, with Pike River. 29 lives snuffed out because of hopeless management, total carelessness, an appalling level of regulation and oversight by the government agency responsible for doing so. And then a succession of deaths, far too many, in one of our other crucial industries, the forestry industry. And then since that time, more than 100 deaths in arguably our most important industry, agriculture and farming. And so this was our chance as a Parliament, on behalf of the millions of voters who put us here, to reflect on the situation and take some positive steps and get it right. And the great thing is, Mr Chairman, we were going so well. There was a consensus that had been reached. And I sat on the Select Committee that first started considering this bill, and there was a consensus. It was chaired by David Bennett at the time, and there were other national MPs and MPs from plenty of other parties. And we were united in our purpose. We understood what our job was. We knew the gravity of the task in front of us. And we grasped it, and we were making headway. And the great thing is that at that time, and that was before the last election, we were in agreement. We were making a difference. We could see what the future looked like. We understood what the issues were and what was needed. And things were going well. And even after the election, when the Select Committee resumed, different membership, different chair, Jonathan Young, MP for New Plymouth, took it up. A responsible member, led other Select Committees, very good at weaving together a consensus, because that's what his track record has been. And so we quite rightly had confidence that the government was serious about seeing through the task of getting health and safety in New Zealand right. But then in the last couple of months it changed. Something happened. And it wasn't on our side. Something happened with the government. The members got unsettled. And they wanted to make a change. And they have undermined one of the most important tenets of workplace health and safety, and that is effective representation by the workforce. Anybody who has had anything to do with workplace health and safety, and in particular has had anything to do with improving workplace health and safety, often from a very bad starting point, knows that the starting point is the frontline workforce. And it's their engagement and their understanding and how they're educated and what they get to make of it and their input into it and who represents them and how their interests and their concerns and their issues are advocated. That's what's most important. And that's what the nervous Nellies in the National Party sought to undermine. Because if there's one thing that defines the National Party, it is they have never understood working New Zealanders. They don't get it. They don't understand it. Never cared about it. And so now we are at the point in this committee stage where we are being asked to sign off on a piece of legislation that does not respect the title of it. This isn't health and safety reform. This will be a backward step. Yeah, there's some improvements in enforcement, bit of extra powers about prohibition notices, but the thing that matters most, which is the engagement of working people and the risks and the hazards that surround them, that has been undermined. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, that is the most disappointing thing, and that is why when it comes to the title of this bill, this title no longer reflects the legislation, Mr Chairman,
Andrew Little.
no longer reflects the task that was before the committee, the task that has been before this House. And we will always look across the House for the rest of this Parliament and say to those members opposite, you have let down working New Zealanders.
Order.
You've actually let down a lot of, those members have let down, not you, Mr Chairman, those members have let down working New Zealanders. And it's not just working New Zealanders they've let down hundreds of thousands of businesses as well, big and small, who've been in touch with us. I had a farmer on the phone to me today saying he can't understand why the National Party has backed out of the issues about involving your workforce. And he said he was very proud of his farm, so proud and so pleased with the processes that he had put in place with the engagement of his workforce. He got WorkSafe to come and have a look, come and audit it, and was very pleased with the engagement of WorkSafe New Zealand and was very pleased with the feedback that he got. He said they gave him some advice on things that could be improved, but he enjoyed dealing with them and he was proud to demonstrate the way he approached health and safety on his farm. Mr Chairman, I want to talk about Section 2, the commencement section, because I have never seen, and admittedly, I've only been in Parliament for 4 and a bit years, I have never seen a commencement section that gives rise to so much uncertainty, that is so all over the place, more all over the place than the Māori Party, than I've seen in this clause here, clause 2. And so there are multiple parts to the commencement of it. So some parts come into force on the day after which the royal assent is given, and some of them are specified, and there are more parts specified as coming into effect on the day after the royal assent. And then there are other little bits carved out, and they're saved for a different commencement date. And then there's this sort of overriding thing that the rest of it will come into force by order in council when the minister and the cabinet decides. And it may not be all the rest of it, it'll be bits and pieces as and when they want. Well, that's ridiculous. This is hopeless. And this is typical of this national government. A piece of legislation that is going to affect 2.4 million New Zealanders, and no one will know when between now and the 1st of January 2018 this is going to come into effect. Some bits will, much of it won't, and it'll be sometime between now and 2018, 2.5 years away. What a ridiculous situation for New Zealanders to be in. What an appalling situation for that national government to put this Parliament in, to ask to approve a commencement clause that is such a dog's breakfast. No one is going to know which bits are in at what time, sometime in the next 2.5 years. And Mr Chairman, they sit there smirking and smugly laughing at each other because, as typifies the members opposite, they think when it comes to workplace issues, it's all just a bit of a joke. You don't actually have to care. You just do stuff, you make promises, and then you break promises. You put stuff up, you tell people you want to be serious about it, and then you pull back because you're not really. Because when push comes to shove, there are a set of interests that they will always give greatest priority to, and it will not be the interests of working people. And we see that in this legislation. We've seen it in their backing out on effective workplace representation, and we see it now in a commencement clause that is going to just cause absolute confusion, create an utter shambles for people who will look at this piece of legislation and wonder when on earth the whole lot of it is going to come into force. When are the bits relevant to them going to come into force? When are the butterfly farmers and the worm growers going to know that they're going to be part of a high-risk industry that has to have workplace representation, whereas their colleagues running a dairy farm or a beef farm aren't going to have to? That's the question that's going to arise under this commencement section. It is just all over the place. And unfortunately, it exemplifies the worst of this bill. What should have been a bill that we championed, all of us, that we all rallied around, that we could at this point be celebrating the achievement of this Parliament as a whole. We are left disappointed. We are left disappointed and unable to understand even with this legislation, even with its glaring holes and its big flaws, when it's going to start.
I call